The objective today is to draw an entity relationship diagram expressing complex connections. The objective may sound complex, but this is really not that big of a deal. So first we'll start with the definition, then I'm going to give you some use cases for such diagrams, then let me try to make some connections for you. Then I'm going to hit you with some pretty heavy things, the difference between a conceptual versus logical ERD, that is entity relationship diagram. Then I'll wrap up the lesson by telling you when you would be using one, and we'll practice one, and your DOL, your demonstration of learning, will be to create one on your own. So here's the definition. This ERD is a graphical representation of entities and their relationships to each other. Typically, you would see one used in computing in regards to the organization of data within databases or information systems. So that's why right here I'm just double checking that you know what a database is. I think I could show you in just one picture here a database. And then in terms of why do we need to learn this, or why would anyone learn this, when you're building a program, we need to store and retrieve data. Well, this ERD will help us set up that data and manipulate it in a way that makes sense. And because databases get complex really quickly, we use these ERDs to visualize what we are trying to store and retrieve. I always think of Twitter. When I follow someone, all their tweets show up in my timeline, specific to me based on all the people I follow. And to help with organization, there's a timestamp on there, so that's probably how Twitter is determining what order to show me these other people's tweets. And if everybody has this unique Twitter profile, think about that. It's a little freaky to think about that we ourselves are just tables in another person's database. So maybe let's look at possible tables that the Twitter engineers would use. Maybe they have a table that has a person's username, so this would absolutely be unique for every user. And then there can be a list of tweets from that user, and I don't know, some companies might want to sell such data. Because once I have my hands on all the things that this user tweets about and likes, maybe I can target them with specific ads that I think would convince them to buy my product. And or maybe here's another way to have a table. Maybe the Twitter engineers are keeping track of the types of tweets that a person has when they first tweet. So maybe there's a reason I could analyze this, how a person progresses in maybe their courage to tweet. Maybe I can analyze about what time do people start losing interest in tweeting because they realize they're just saying a bunch of nothing out into the universe. But I don't want to judge anyone too harshly. You know, social media is all about making connections, and that might be hard for a lot of people. And that kind of gives you a hint as to what I think an answer for this question would be. The question is, which table makes more sense for people's tweets? Well, it's not the best question, because I guess the answer, like many things in programming or tech, is it just depends. Now let's start imagining some complexity here. Imagine that I have a table where elements of one part of the table are showing up in other parts of other tables. What would I title this one? Maybe this is the followers table. So in order to see who follows this user, I can go to this table and start reading off all those names. Or if I'm interested in the content of tweets, what would this table be called? Maybe the content table. And then maybe you can draw a connection between these two. If Debt Wielder likes to follow this person, Loves to Learn, well, what types of things does Loves to Learn post about? Is there any correlation between this and his other followers? Okay, so there's a couple types of entity relationship diagrams. You'll have what's called a conceptual data model, and this is the highest level. It just contains the least granular detail, but it establishes the overall scope of what is to be included within the model set. And check out this one, how the lines have some specific symbols. A little bit more on that later. But for now, just know that we can have this big conceptual model, and then we can have a logical model. The logical entity relationship model contains more detail than the conceptual one, okay? In addition to master data entities, you'll be looking at operational and transactional data as well. So I know you'll need some more examples about that. Here is the example. If we were to dive deeper into this topic, I would want you to practice with these different symbols, but for now we just don't need to. Basically, you can look at a line, and that line will denote the type of relationship that thing, that entity, has with another thing. So here's a brief example, and again, we just don't need to go that deep into this, but let's take an employee table, for example. You can have an employee, and they'll have an ID, they'll have a first name and last name, and other information inside this table. Now, if we follow this line over here, we see that an employee will have a job, and this will have a job ID. That's why there's these two lines, because they will have a job on only one job. But for a job to exist, maybe inside the company there's a job that has no one in it. So that's why when you go this way, you'll see a 0, but then a greater than sign, because there could be no one in that particular job, or you could have jobs where there are many employees that have that same type of job. But what will be unique, of course, would be that job ID. And that'd be true for each table in this entity relationship model. Now, when would you use this? Well, the first stage of information system design uses these types of models, and you're using this during the requirements analysis phase. They're helpful to see what you will be requiring, because it forces you to describe the information that you'll be needing. In the programming context, what we're talking about is the type of information that's going to be stored in databases. And before I wrap this up, let me just get really philosophical for a moment. It says here that an entity may be defined as a thing capable of an independent existence that can be uniquely identified. An entity is an abstraction from the complexities of a domain. When we speak of an entity, we normally speak of some aspect of the real world that can be distinguished from other aspects of the real world. So let's start working with a hardcore example. At my school, like many schools across the nation, we have student databases. And I'm sure the developers had created some sort of entity relationship diagram before building these. So what I'll do right now is show you how to build one of these, and we're just going to do this as some practice before you're asked to make one all by yourself. So here's 3 steps for you to follow. I want you to open up Excel, then follow along with me, and make sure to pause frequently. So what I've done right now is what I've asked my students to do often, and that is to split their screen. I'm going to pretty much build these tables exactly right now, and then show you some tools in Excel to make them a little bit more expressive of the connections that you make with an entity relationship diagram. So I typed in student ID, then I'll type in the name and press tab to quickly go to the right. Now I can type in age. If I hit return, I'll go down to the next line. So that's the number 1, and then it says Acon, and then it says 17. I push enter, and I keep going like that. I'll do the next table in the same way, and some of you might wonder why it says subject underscore ID. Well, in programming, we don't use a lot of spaces. And you might be wondering, is it okay if I have a student ID in the first column of 2 different tables? And the answer to that is definitely yes. I'm going to give you a trick right now to use that should make your life significantly easier. And the trick is just say the words when I click this, and you'll know if that table is needed or not. So one thing I'm missing in this spreadsheet is I don't have any table names, so let me drag that down, give myself some space. And to really give myself some space, I can highlight all of this and then go up here where it says merge and center. So I'll click it, and there's a bunch of white space. Let's make all of this bigger, so highlight it all, go over here, type in 25 should be good. Okay, I need some more space, so let me highlight and merge that as well. Move this over. Move that over as well. Okay, I was just moving all of these over quite a bit, so I'm done with this split screen. Let me make this larger. And I want even more space, so let me click the column, right click, insert. And there I go, I inserted a column over there. Let me go over here and just keep spacing these out so everything looks nice and neat. Okay, and to add some color, I can highlight each one, choose a fill color, so that'll be yellow. This one I'll make light blue, and this one could be green. How about that? And another Excel trick before I go, let's highlight all of these and right click, go to Format Cells. You can do a lot of different things once you do that. Maybe I want those numbers to be on the left side, so I just click alignment, go down here to text direction and click left to right, then press OK. Then go to horizontal instead of general. I'm going to click left indent, click OK, and there they are. Over here I could do the same thing. You want consistency in your entity relationship diagrams. And as you can see, there's just a lot of other options over here. So with that said, that's the end of the lesson. If you can create your own table for me, that'd be great. You're going to do it in Excel, save it as an Excel document, and send it to my inbox. Feel free to choose whatever type of entity relationship you want to create. Or if you're not the creative type, just go ahead and create one similar to mine. Just show me that you can create this yourself. And one last trick I want to show you so you can do this is let's click Insert up here and then go over to Shapes right here. And you can choose all types of different shapes. I like this arrow with the thickness to it, so I'm going to click that one. And let's draw this into our spreadsheet. I'm going to turn it a little bit, move it up a little bit. Okay, now make it smaller. And I can right click to format it. Instead of filling it all with one color, let me just go with no fill. I can make the outline any color I want. Red really stands out. And there we go. So there's the relationship. Let me insert another arrow. Same thing, just facing another direction. So first just create it, and then I can spin it around and change it all I want. There we go, no big deal. So make sure to get those arrows in for full credit.